Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Living Theurgy, we'll be discussing matters living and theurgical. I'm here with my Llewellyn theurgists, fellow authors of a recent book on theurgy, and I will introduce them shortly. Cleopatra, greetings and welcome.
Thank you.
Apollonius, greetings and welcome.
Greetings.
Mierzwicki, greetings and welcome.
Greetings.
Okay. I have not seen the Odyssey, which is what we'll be discussing today, but I've heard some reactions. So when it's my turn, all I can do is share what I've heard and how I reacted. But I'm looking forward to everything that you guys have to say, and I'm looking forward to seeing the movie. What is new and exciting in your neck of the theurgical woods, Cleopatra?
Oh gosh, I just finished a month-long trip around the country, so I got to do a bunch of stuff. I got to stop in and talk to Alicia at Llewellyn, which is always fun. And I went to Babylon Rising, so I did a couple of presentations there. And that's like my thelemic home. It's not like an open festival for non-denominational theurgists or Thelemites. So I love working with that crew. What I do there, I don't make presentations as much as I have conversations. I go, okay, I'm thinking about this. What do you guys think? And it's just really wonderful, cutting edge thought from this community. So we were talking about sex magic and talking about American witchcraft. That's where my conversations are just now. So I'm starting a whole bunch of conversations that around the idea of being witches in America, which has some theurgy in it. So that's what I'm doing just now.
That is awesome. And if you ever want to immortalize them on Zoom, you're more than welcome to just talk to them. We'll schedule it.
Great.
Thank you very much. Apollonius, what is new in your side of the theurgical universe?
Well, I just got back from Mystic South a few days ago, and where I gave a presentation on practical ways of working with the Greek magical papyri. So I talked about how we deal with, all of the various textual problems, where there's literally holes in the papyrus and, often uninterpretable magical names and these sorts of things. And so I tried to give at least my ideas about how we work with these things experimentally, trying them out, modifying them, working on them some more, and so forth. And beyond that, I attended a number of very interesting talks and rituals and drum circle and all of that kind of good stuff. So I think it was a good conference. I've been, I think, for 5 or 6 years now, I've attended Mystic South. And I think in a sense, this was really the best, or at least that's the way I reacted to it.
That is awesome. I wished I lived nearby so I could observe them. I remember you made a comment here on the show that I thought very insightful and was very close to where my explorations have taken me. So I recently purchased your book on the Pythagorean Orphic technique. That's where you said that you basically what led to the conclusions you made coming out of that writing. So I'm looking forward to reading it. When I read it, I'm looking forward to interviewing you.
Sure, that'd be wonderful.
And Tony, how about what's new with your side of the universe?
The most exciting thing for me is that I went to Mystic South. I feel like I'm Apollonius' stalker. I've been at the last 2 conferences with him, and his lecture was really good, and he was kind enough to promote my book. And when I did my lecture, I promoted his book and went to a whole lot of lectures, caught up with people I hadn't seen in quite a long time. It was a fun event. It was my first time at Mystic South, but definitely not my last time. Next year, they're going to have their 10th anniversary, and Susan and I are really looking forward to it. So it was wonderful having Apollonius there and other friends there. It was really a wonderful event. I don't know what else I can say about it. Lots of lectures to choose from. There was fairly large thelemic component. There were a couple of people talking about the Greek gods. But there was a lot there for everyone.
Oh, awesome. And as I said with Apollonius, I wish I was nearer to where you guys are doing your thing, because I would love to be a fly on the wall or listen in your audience.
You'd be presenting if you were there, Hercules. You wouldn't be a fly on the wall, I'm sure.
Well, I enjoyed presenting when our book came out, and maybe I'll get the opportunity to do that again. Thank you very much for your kind words. Here on my end, I started two new podcasts on theurgy. One is called Thoughts on Theurgy, and I've been interviewing magical folk that aren't normally associated with theurgy. And I was very surprised to how they privately thought of what they were doing magically as theurgical. So I had Alan Greenfield, I had Set Nebuchadnezzar, and I had somebody named Janus Magus. And they're all very knowledgeable, each in their own way. And their insights on theurgy were rather exciting. I'd like to start again some of the hybrid shows we had, like when Cleopatra interviewed people with witchcraft and other topics, and integrated them into a larger theoretical universe. And I hope we can start that again. And I'm going to ask you guys if you have any ideas beyond the one that I already started. Also, I started something called Olympian Paths. And there I started interviewing people who work with the Olympians, whose ways of working with the Olympians and understanding the Olympians is quite different than the understandings that we might have. And that's been very interesting as well. And I'm working on my third new podcast called Theurgy Beyond the Middle, which is focused on non-Greco-Roman Egyptian forms of theurgy and what they're based on. I've been working with a lot of Thelemites. They've been coming out of the woodwork, so I have an abundance of Thelemite perspectives, and one of them called us damn theomancers. That was very interesting and required explanation. So any ideas on what we could add to the podcast?
Gee, that's a lot of them, Hercules. Good job. I would restart Witchcraft and Theurgy. Actually, that was really fun. Starting with Don Frew, who would come and talk to us again. He got this far into this much material, so that would be a fun thing to start out. Maybe we can put that on the schedule.
Sure, and if we can't schedule it regularly, we'll schedule it irregularly, and we'll just do one step at a time until the information gets out there. I'm very open to report that I enjoyed the last interview that you did. Apollonius, any ideas?
Not right off the top of my head. I'll have to think about it some, but I mean, those all sound like worthwhile projects. And I think embracing other people that are doing theurgy, as you said, outside of the Mediterranean area, whether they call it theurgy or not. Of course, more and more people are calling it theurgy but even if it goes under another name, as it does in witchcraft and in Thelema, I think we need to get in contact. And also, then we've talked about this outside sort of the Western tradition too. I've certainly the Hindu traditions are very relevant, and Tibetan Buddhism I think is very relevant, and so I think also broadening it out of the more Western tradition as well would be a very good idea, because we can all trade ideas, and I think the underlying mechanism, if you like, is the same no matter what the tradition is. And so especially for those of us that are working in traditions where the oral tradition has been broken, and the textual tradition is maybe not as detailed as we would like, it helps to be able to trade ideas and trade techniques and learn from others as well. And sometimes give them some ideas too. Show how what they're doing is not necessarily so alien from what has been done in the more European traditions.
If you've ever want to have a show like that and you know someone that you'd like to talk to, just again talk to me and we'll schedule it as quickly as possible. And like with Cleopatra. If you want to do it regularly scheduled, we can integrate that in. If you want to do it irregularly scheduled, we can do that as well. I would welcome that current into our conversations. Thank you. And Tony, how about you?
I really like Apollonius's idea of casting the net out wide, interviewing people from various traditions, and you may find that they may well be practicing theurgy as something very, very similar to it, but knowing it under a different term. And we're always in a position where we can learn from other people, and we've seen that with Brandy, learning from Japanese temples, absorbing some of their techniques. I think we should definitely be looking at what other people are doing and learning from them.
I agree. And you've done the Living Theurgy show in the past, and then you developed the Zeus and Hera show. So if you want to bring either of those shows periodically to the station or permanently to the station, you're more than welcome to as well.
Thank you.
Onwards to Troy and the Odyssey. There's been a big hubbub about Troy and the Odyssey, and I have not seen the movie yet. I'm not going to see it in the theaters. I'm going to wait till it comes out on streaming. But it seemed to everybody like a good idea to discuss the Odyssey. So I will start with Tony, who suggested the Odyssey, and see what he has to say about it.
I'm not sure if I'm the best person to start with because I have a lot to say about it. I just uploaded a blog about it. I saw the movie last night with Susan, and I have formed very strong opinions about it. I'm happy to talk about what's in my blog, but otherwise I'm happy to stand back and let other people talk because I have put a fair bit of thought into it.
Okay, I will offer it to Apollonius. Have you seen the movie yet?
No, I haven't. It was, of course, it opened when we were at Mystic South, and I'm going to try and see it in IMAX. There's a couple IMAX theaters in driving range. I have no idea at this point whether it's how hard it is going to be to get tickets to it. I know one of them is sold out, I think, through its current run. So, but I haven't really attacked that yet, and that's kind of probably my job for the next few days is to try and see what the situation is. And if all else fails, I'll try and see it in a regular movie theater. But so that's my goal. But no, unfortunately, I haven't. I've read some of the stuff about it and so forth, but I haven't had a chance to see it yet. But I intend to.
So we will also visit your pre-movie thoughts and impressions, and go to Cleopatra. Cleopatra, have you seen the movie yet?
No, but I had a couple of thoughts about sort of the idea of making movies from the stories, right? So the question is like, who owns the story? I think one of us had said, should we be moving forward? Do the stories move forward in time? And I always kind of bristle when Hollywood takes something that's a story like the Odyssey and then makes it into a movie. It takes something that's a cultural inheritance and turns it into something that's for profit. So I'm not really behind the whole making a movie about the Odyssey idea to start with. And then I started thinking, well, I'm myself not Greek. It's not my cultural heritage, so maybe I shouldn't have such a feeling of ownership. But then it's also that this story informs my spirituality, and it talks about the gods. And I kind of object to the way that Hollywood takes the gods and takes stories and doesn't take them seriously as deities, right? And then I thought, well, yeah, but they do that with Christians too. There's stories, movies about God, the Father, and going to heaven. So there are just a lot of issues around that. But just in general, I'm not that fond of that kind of movie. And that said, I have to admit that I am a fan of Xena Warrior Princess. The gods were not treated well at all. I saw a panel where a woman wrote for the show, and she said that she had a background in classics, but they didn't hold it against her. So I think we don't. It's sort of like this is how people see the gods, and then it becomes very difficult to understand them as deities, and take them seriously. So that's why I'm like probably not going to see the movie until it hits streaming.
Thank you for that impression and your thoughts. And a lot of people have echoed what you just said. I wrote something once when I was studying my bachelor's degree, and unfortunately, I don't think it survived the many moves and life adventures that I had. But in it, I argued that it's a good thing when Hollywood or the arts or the popular culture takes these stories and does something with them, because it acts like nets. And it'll attract some people who want to look beyond Xena the Warrior Princess or Hercules' Legendary Journeys or Disney's Hercules or whatever it happens to be, or the Odyssey now, and make them seek out the original material. So in that sense, I find it to be a good thing. And the mythology that we have and a lot of the information that we have has been popularized even in antiquity. So we have several different versions of the Argonautica, for instance. One of them even Orphic, and there are lost Argonauticas, one that focused primarily on Hercules. We got that in the 1950s with the Steve Reeves movie about the voyage of the Argo, where they focused primarily on Hercules. But we lost the one that we had in antiquity. So I'm kind of neutral about it. I certainly, as a Greek, understand the cultural appropriation part, and I've heard Greeks complain that why didn't they cast Greek actors? Why do they have British people representing the Greeks when there are Greek people whose culture this is? But then again, that has a negative side to it too. I remember Kakolianis, he did the Iphigenia movie. I don't know if you guys remember Iphigenia. Was a movie about Iphigenia based on a play, and it was in Greek. And it was very, very effective, and you got to see what it would look like from a Greek person's perspective, the culture, the costumes, and the interaction. But later on, he did the same thing with Electra, and then he did the Trojan Women. And in the Trojan Women, he got American and English or English-speaking actors to play the various parts of the Greeks and the Trojans, but he had them do it as if they were speaking Greek. And although it was a noble experiment and I applaud it, it was very grating on the nerves because the Greeks sound like they're fighting when they talk, and they invest a lot of emotion into their words, and there's a lot of gestures, and it didn't work when it wasn't in Greek. It didn't work with English, so I lightened my criticism after that point. Okay, Tony, it looks like you're the only one who saw the movie, so I pass it on to you, and we'll react to what you're saying.
Okay, Hercules, I totally agree with you that when Hollywood makes a movie, if they do it well, it does cast the net out wide. So there'll be a lot of people seeing the movie. Some will just see it, walk out, and that'll be the end of it for them. But there'll be others who'll want to investigate the subject matter a little bit more. So we may well find people coming over wanting to investigate the Greek gods, wanting to investigate classical literature. So before going to the movie, I read up on what was being said about it. And on the one hand, on the plus side, it was done by Christopher Nolan, and he has a capacity for producing spectacular epics. Then it had a stellar cast. Matt Damon. I love Matt Damon in like virtually everything he does. There was Tom Holland, from Spider-Man, Anne Hathaway, Robert Pattinson, Lupita Nyong'o, Zendaya, and Charlize Theron. They filmed a number of sequences in Greece, which was really cool. It gave a feeling of authenticity. And the controversy doubtless would have contributed to many people wanting to investigate the movie a little bit more. On the negative side, people had problems with unconventional casting decisions. So people had a problem with Lupita Nyong'o playing Helen of Troy, having Elliot Page play Sinon, a Greek soldier, and having rapper Travis Scott play a bard. And as you pointed out, there's an absence of Greeks in starring roles. There are other controversies in costume design. The costumes weren't authentic. People had a problem with modern dialogue and the use of American accents. I thought the movie would have been better had the costumes been more authentic. They looked like Bronze Age Greek costumes. I didn't have a problem with the modern dialogue because it made it easier to immerse yourself in the movie. So Elon Musk has written on X that before this year ends, Grok Imagine will make a full-length movie of the Odyssey that is historically accurate and true to the art of Homer. And Musk is also open to the idea of giving director Mel Gibson $100 million to make a historically accurate Odyssey. I think you have to remember that we are dealing with a film rather than a documentary. The thing is that the writings of Homer were incredibly important. I see the writings of Homer as being equivalent to those of the Bible. People in ancient Greece would memorize at least verses from the writings of Homer, and they would use them as guides on how best to live their lives, what sort of decisions they should make in their lives. That the writings were also used in magic. Small verses would be used magically as the Bible gets used in magic. They're used in divination. Apollonius was talking about translating the Homeric oracle, which comes from the PGM, where a roll of 3 dice would link to a particular verse, which would come from the writings of Homer. So Homer was basically the law, religion, and entertainment of ancient Greece. And his writings have stood the test of time. His writings have been around for, close to 3,000 years now. I really liked all the esoteric references in the movie. Athena, the goddess Athena, is featured throughout. Poseidon gets referred to a lot. Zeus and Helios. Helios, in particular, lost his cattle to Odysseus's crew. That was mentioned. Circe is there, and in one scene she transforms Odysseus's men into pigs, but is persuaded to return them to their original form. There's the famous necromancy scene where a portal's open to the underworld and the prophet Tiresias is asked for guidance. We meet the nymph Calypso, we have the Cyclops, Polyphemus, the Sirens, and the list goes on. There is so much in the movie for people who love the Greek gods and love mythology. So I talked about the costumes not being authentic. A number of people have said that the ships appear to be more Viking-like than Greek. And one of the vessels is the Glad of Gilberga, a traditional Viking longship replica. And it was loaned to Universal Pictures. They used it for 6 months, returned it damaged, and they're now not wanting to pay for any sort of repairs. Thing is, it's owned by a not-for-profit organization called the Vikingaladen. I probably mispronounced that, Association Värmland, Sweden. And they run on a shoestring budget. They have volunteer labor. And to repair the ship is like greater than the annual budget that they have. So it's pretty horrible what they've done. And one thing that dawned on me is that the function of the Homeric writings was that they served to unify squabbling ancient Greek city-states. So that was their function in ancient times. So I kept thinking that by having a diverse cast in this day and time, we could be trying to unite all the nations of the world. So that would indicate that while Homeric writings have a Greek origin, they now belong to the world. And Susan pointed out to me that there was a Broadway play called Hamilton, in which the founders were replaced with an original cast of mostly black and brown faces, assuming the roles of historic white figures. So there's definitely a market for reimagining history. It was like the biggest sensation in Broadway history. So my recommendation is to ignore the negative reviews, see the movie, and make up your own mind. And to be honest, I had low expectations for it because of all the negative press it had gotten. But I wound up sitting there and I was blown away by it. I thought it was wonderful. Um, I would thoroughly recommend it to anyone, and we're probably going to see it again. Jason Mankey did a review of it, and he also said that he loved the movie, and he intends to see it 2 or 3 times total. So, and he's another guy who's written about the Greek gods, and so his heart's in the right place. It's pretty well all I have to say.
Thank you very much. You've said a lot. I know that I do children's enrichment programs based on Greek mythology. And the comment I've heard by most people who are aware of that activity are that they left out I am nobody from the Polyphemus encounter.
Yes, that was left out.
That seemed to be the source of a lot of outrage in people who saw the movie, who love it for the mythology rather than the Greek gods in particular. And the kids, the classes that I hold through interactive storytelling, it does encourage them to go back to the myths. They want to
Exactly.
they want to know how to beat the monster. So whenever they encounter a Cyclops, they've encountered the story of I am nobody, so they'll give people these silly answers to the Cyclops question who they are, and then try to use the silly answer to get away from whatever danger the Cyclops has. But thank you. Those are good points. And again, I'm going to wait till it streams, but I'm looking forward to seeing the movie.
Sure, you'll enjoy it. But it is an experience you probably want on the big screen. And it was filmed totally in the IMAX format. So I don't think you can really see it in a normal cinema. You really have to go off and see it in IMAX. It's very immersive. I think it's well worth watching.
Thank you. Apollonius, do you have anything you'd like to ask Tony or add to what Tony's saying?
Well, I've again in anticipation of seeing it, but reading some of the comments by people interested in movies and movie making, but also classicists and people like that. I've been thinking about it, and one thing that occurred to me, because very early on, as soon as the first pictures came out from, when they were still filming it, and people said, "Oh no, they don't have Bronze Age helmets," and so forth. And I thought, well, that's true. And for those of us that like historical accuracy, you would kind of like to see everything, based on the best archaeology of the Bronze Age. But then I thought, the Bronze Age, that was half a millennium before Homer, or a little less than that. By the time Homer was reciting this, they probably didn't know what Bronze Age armor looked like. And certainly by the classical era in Greece, they probably were inclined to imagine things, the armor of the day. And so, we unless somebody is a specialist in these things, I think there's a tendency to reimagine it in more familiar terms in any case. And I think when we're thinking about inaccuracies, in some sense that's part of the communication. If you want to communicate Greek soldier, you kind of have to use the idiom that people are familiar with, and that's probably more of a sort of a classical period type of helmet and so forth. The other thing is in terms of I think what often bothers us with movie adaptations and things like that is some favorite part, like the I'm no man or I'm nobody uh, 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 event. Something that kind of we really found either very significant or just fun or whatever it might be, but it's a favorite part gets left out, because you have to leave out some stuff or change some stuff. And I think that's sometimes what kind of tends to make us think that movies are inadequate. But it is a different art form, you know. Um, 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 Unless you're going to hear the Odyssey chanted in ancient Greek, which is really the only, you know, sort of authentic way of experiencing the Odyssey, you're going to have some sort of adaptation. A lot of people read prose translations of the Odyssey. What's fine, you get the story, you know, or they read, say, an English verse translation of the Odyssey. Well, that's a little bit closer to the original. In a poetic form, and you get some of the rhythm and the drive of it. Um, and you know, none of those are really appropriate for a movie. You know, you can't either just have straight prose or a chanted poem or anything like that. So yes, you have to adapt many different things to just fit the medium. And or a radio drama would be yet something completely different yet. So, or a stage play. You know, all of these things are very different media, and so you have to make changes appropriate to the medium, and while trying to stay true to the original in some way. And this is, of course, not just the difficulty of translation, but then also the difficulty of adaptation, even if you're trying to be as true as possible to the original. So, you know, what I've heard from some classicists, I've seen a couple online lectures and stuff about the Odyssey, and they said, you know, well, you know, you grit your teeth, you go in knowing there's some things you're going to hate, but, you know, just kind of try and accept it on its own terms. And as I think you said, Hercules, that you know there were all sorts of different versions of these stories in ancient Greece. You know, and we know from the playwrights often told different versions of the myths from the ones we find in Homer or in Hesiod, for example. And so, um, you know, in some sense, there's no canonical version of these stories. Now there is, you know, a canonical version of the text of the Iliad and the Odyssey, and as Tony was saying, these they're I wouldn't say they're sacred so much as inspired. These are inspired texts, and of course from ancient times we have people, um, you know, looking at the deeper meaning of them. You know, the notion that texts like the Homeric texts have four levels of meaning. They have a literal meaning, and they have an allegorical meaning, and they have a symbolic meaning, and they have an anagogic meaning. And so I think you know we try and understand all of those. Now, and I wouldn't expect all of those levels to be preserved in an adaptation such as a movie. To some extent, you know, it can. Um, but they have to be trans. So I'll take that back. I think a movie can have, for example, all four of those levels, but even the anagogic level, which is in some sense, you know, transforming your psyche, but they're going to operate in different ways because the medium is different. So I'm trying, you know, assuming I manage to get to see the thing sooner rather than later. Um, that's kind of the way I'm approaching it. I think the Odyssey is fascinating. I may in fact teach a class on sort of the Odyssey as an initiation ritual, um, and because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there, and since people are really kind of interested in it now, it might be a good time to go through some of that stuff. Um, but but yeah, I don't know. I'm rattling on now. So, but that's kind of my impression of it at this time. But you know, I have a lot of respect for translators and um, and adapters. It's a hard problem. You can't please everybody, so you really have to have your own artistic integrity to do it well. So I'll
Thank you.
stop.
I'm going to add to what you said a little bit concerning the different versions. A lot of people complained about the Hercules legendary journeys and its non-authenticity or non-alignment with the Greek mythology. Some of the episodes that they point out are the Archangel Michael episode and the Jack and the Beanstalk episode. And I never tire of pointing out that if you study neo-theosophy and the older theosophies that it's based on, Hercules and Michael are related, and they would have interacted. And also, I've read folkloric accounts of comparing the Hercules legend with Jack and the Beanstalk in its own form. So these things are out there, and they are rare information that's scholarly, and they were in these cheap entertainments. And Disney Hercules, which is often much maligned, if you look at Etruscan versions of the Hercules legend, all the stuff that happened in the Greek isn't there for the most part. He's a son of Zeus and Hera. They both love him. Married to Athena, and Ares is one of their children. So that's in one the forms of Etruscan mythology. And Herodotus makes the associations with Melkart of Tyre, and Nonnus does the same thing and reinforces it. So there is some crossover there. Hercules was seen as Melkart, not as a different god or related god, but it was the same god essentially. So the mythologies blend together. And if you're familiar with Melkart, you can see where the mythologies blend together. So I see these movies as, some of the things people might not like might actually be described in some rare scholarly accounts.
Or they might be a result of true, genuine intuition too.
Very true.
We can get new insights into these things as long as they're grounded in a genuine intuition.
And that is very true. In fact, my study of the Theosophical Hercules or the Neo-Theosophical Hercules, I see that as a continuation of the Melkart tradition, and so many different parallels. And although Blavatsky might have known of such things, I really doubt that the subsequent authors that helped build the myth and build upon it were learned in Venetian customs and mythology. So I've been getting like lots of rare insights from these modern iterations of ancient lore. So yeah, I'm looking forward to new insights, and you never know where your thoughts will take you. And that's one thing that I find exciting about what we do, because in our talk, we open our eyes to new perspectives, and with new perspectives from new vistas, and we get an enhanced experience that we don't have to believe. We just listen and look at things a little bit differently. Cleopatra.
So, Tony, I have to tell you, you have now convinced me that I have to see the movie. Thank you very much. And I have to say, some of those negatives or positives for me, I'm like, okay, you have women of color playing parts. That's fantastic. You have a woman playing a man's part. That's fantastic. I'm now going to go. That's lovely. And I don't have anything else to add, except Apollonius mentioned something about how you read it, and other ways to experience it. And I'll mention my favorite way I approached these stories. I have a nephew who was at that time like 10 years old. I took him on a camping trip, and we had a campfire. And he is still a total fan of Greek literature and the battle scenes. He joined the SCA and went and joined the Myrmidons, and they reenact, right? They get historically accurate costumes, and they go at each other with Nerf bats, mind you. But so he really loved that stuff. So I sat him next to the fire, and I read him the catalog of ships. Which is probably the geekiest thing you can read out of Homer. And he loved it. He went to sleep, murmuring about the ships. So that's my story.
Very cool.
I just wanted to make a little comment about what Apollonius was saying. There were a few things that Homer got wrong. Once we start looking at archaeological evidence, the one example which I remember was the use of chariots. In Mycenaean times, chariots were used like tanks on the battlefield, whereas in the writings of Homer, they're basically a taxi service. So once one of the warriors on the field got tired, the chariot would go out, pick up the warrior, bring him back, and replace him with someone else. plus some of the weaponry. I don't remember all the details. Some of the weaponry was what was incorrect. So basically, Homer had all this information passed down to him, and he related as best as he could, but through the lens of the time that he was writing in, which was a few hundred years after the Bronze Age. So if you look at that as a precedent, then I suppose we can assume that we have license to modify things in this day and age.
Very good point. I'm a Lemnian Greek, and Lemnos is the island of Amazons that Jason the Argonauts landed upon. It's also where Peloponnesus was abandoned after he was bitten by a snake, and where Odysseus had to go to get Hercules' bow to defeat the Trojans. And it's one of the first places Hercules stepped down when he was a god. And from Lemnos, you could see Troy. It was called Ilium, and because it shone like the sun in the morning and at night, it was very shady, reflected the light. And there was a market in Polyokni, which was a small island where I used to play as a kid. And the Greeks and the Trojans and other people used to go there and buy stuff. So that's proven archaeology. They found all kinds of artifacts and so on. But the Trojan War literature makes it seem as if they were away for a long period of time and isolated. When actually, it's like saying they were having to fight in New Jersey, and they commuted back to New York. Any of them could have visited home at any time. It wasn't that far away. So I'm sure that aspect of the story isn't well done at all. Okay, onward. We talked about the past, we talked about the present, we talked about the near future with the movie. What else is going on in the world of theurgy? And we'll start again with Cleopatra.
So I'm booking 2027. And I wanted to alert us all that Spirit Northwest is actually taking applications now for presentations, and they'll close in September. And they don't actually happen until April, so it's a thing to kind of pay attention to. So I plan to go to Spirit Northwest and make apply to present. I booked my travel there. I booked my travel again to Piganicon, and I don't want to trigger PTSD. But I've rebooked the train trip and used the credit from the train trip that did not happen, to do it. So I plan to go to Piganicon. This time, though, if the train gets delayed, I'm going to jump on a plane. I'm going to take my bag and get there however I can get there. So I'm doing that. I also plan to do Mystic South. I promised Marla Roberson is the director of programs, and she and I have been working together on a COG committee, Covenant of Goddess committee, and she's a Georgian elder, and I'm a Georgian elder. So I promised her I will go. So I hope to see everyone there. I hope to see you, Apollonius and Tony there next year too. And if this is a good time to say, are there any other events that anyone is going to next year? It's a good time to, it seems silly, but it's not to plan this far in advance, right? So, are there other events that you're going to? So I'd like to hear that.
Thank you very much, Cleopatra. Apollonius.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. I certainly intend to be at Mystic South again next year, and I hope Cleo will be there too. She's been there. This is the first year I think she has not been to Mystic South because she had a conflict. But what else? Well, I've got this is online. I'll be doing a class for WitchCon on the Pythagorean Tarot. Which I've went out of print in 2010, and I've done a new edition of the book, and the cards are available again, and so I'll be doing something on the Pythagorean Tarot. And recently, I've volunteered to do a couple classes for Witches Gather. This is I think it's new online pagan / witches education network. It's run by Witch Space. So I can send you information about that if you're interested. But I'll be doing a class, two classes there Oh, now what are they? What are they on? I got to remember. One is on the Greek, practical ancient Greek divination, um, and the other is on Neoplatonic theurgy, practical Neoplatonic theurgy. So I'll be doing those two classes for them. The 45-minute class with 15 minutes of question and answer online, and those classes then will be archived also. And I am planning to submit some classes to Convocation. Some of you may know about. It's been going for, I believe, 31 years now in Michigan, and I will probably be, because I've made some contacts with the Convocation folks at Mystic South, and so I'll probably be doing a couple classes for them as well, to be determined. And so that'll be an event to attend in Michigan. And I don't know what else, probably PaganaCon. And so yes, definitely I would like to hear about what else is available too. Because ever since PantheaCon reached its end, I'm looking for other events I can attend in the flesh as well as virtually.
Thank you.
That's probably about all for me. Yeah. And, you know, I'm as usual working on some writing projects, but I've got these classes I'm planning too.
You're always working on some writing projects, enriching us all with a lifetime full of research. Thank you for that and for everything else. And Tony, how about you?
I had a really good time at PaganaCon and Mystic South, and will most probably go again. Like Apollonius, I'll be presenting at WitchCon. I think there's another Christian Day event that I'm presenting at as well. I'd have to look up my schedule for that. I am like on the hunt for other events. I've got Pagan Pride Day coming up for Los Angeles and Orange County. That's going to be in early October. Um, I I can't really talk about anything else at this stage. But like I said, I am on the lookout for more events that I can attend. I really enjoy going to events, and like Apollonius, I keenly feel the loss of PantheaCon. It was an amazing event, and I keep judging other events relative to PantheaCon. I found PaganaCon to be like a small version of PantheaCon, and PaganaCon was, and Mystic South was much the same thing. Yeah, that's all I really have to share.
Okay, thank you very much. On my end, I am not going to be attending any events in the foreseeable future, primarily because of my spinal stenosis at this particular point. I'm finding it very difficult to walk. But I intend on increasing the programming. And just as this podcast came about because of the absence of PantheaCon, we could take other elements from PantheaCon and integrate them into what we're doing. And I'd be willing to experiment and to set up new things, like, for instance, instructional things. We might want to try our hand at doing classes aside from those that Jean-Louis has planned, or that the Council of the THEURGIA Council of North America might have planned in the future. Also, it's not a lot. There's only around 5,000 people on my page, but if you want to promote events that you're in, or activities or publication of books or papers, please feel free to advertise on the page. And we'll brand it, we will know your theurgist and theurgical activities or theurgy on the move. We'll come up with some really attractive sayings to go along with the title of what you're doing. And this way, at least get the word out. A lot of metaphysical folk are in my friends' list throughout the world. So it would be another place to advertise for free. I'm also playing around with some ideas. I used to, and I believe I shared this early on in the conversation, I tried starting a spiritual movement once in Pennsylvania, and it was Olympian. And I had people throughout the United States flocking to it, and we became a registered religious organization, and it was papal, so the Pope, even, which is funny. But I stopped doing that because of certain things that happened when people had titles. Inappropriate interactions with people who didn't have titles. So that happened a few times. So I cut the strings off the project and let it go away. I want to salvage some of the best of the things I've done in life and try to resurrect the parts of them that worked well. So I'll be announcing those as they unfold. Right now, the class that I have in my home once a month, they all want more theurgy. So looking at, they've read the book, and when I shared with them the announcements on the Theurgical Council of North America and the organization formed in Europe, they were phenomenally interested in that. So we're going to move in that direction. Right now, it's just a bunch of conversations, but eventually it's going to move on that premise as well. Does anybody have any news to report about the Theurgy Council of North America? No, nothing new there?
No,
Right.
we haven't done anything lately. I'm sure we stand ready.
Okay, good.
Actually, Apollonius, you attended the Pagan Solidarity call on Monday. I kind of dropped off early, but maybe you could give us a brief overview of what Pagan Solidarity is doing?
Sure. Pagan Solidarity Alliance is an organization, nominally elders and group leaders in the pagan community, broadly interpreted, that are mostly, trying to watch out for our religious liberty and preserve it and deal with any threats to it as we can. So it's been they at the last meeting. And by the way, anyone can join up. There's a couple levels of membership, but basically anyone can join up. So it's not a big secret or anything like that. If you just search for online for Pagan Solidarity Alliance, and so it was I think it was a 1 year anniversary, or it's been about a year since it was originally formed. And so the meeting was mostly devoted to kind of a wrap up, a review of the previous year and what had been done. And a lot of it was organizational, as the organization self-organized, and eventually had elections for some offices, just because somebody's got to kind of keep it organized and so forth. But now it's functioning more, and the main thing has been done recently is that, and we talked about it last time on this meeting, the reduction in the number of religious codes that can be attached to members of the military, from over 200 to 31, I believe is the number. And the PSA has basically filed some FOIA requests to basically get information about how these decisions were made. First of all, to do it, and then what sort of criteria were used for deciding what religions are on the list and what religions are not on the list, and so forth. And as I understand it, at this point, they had requested a expedited treatment of the FOIA request, and that was denied. And so now it's going through the regular process, which, I guess there was also a notification that I believe it's a legal requirement. They're supposed to respond within 20 days, I believe. And they said, well, we're not going to do that because there's just too many FOIA requests. So, it looks like they're going to drag their feet on any sort of response to that. There was also a PSA drafted, and this is also all on the website, I believe, a review of the and Brandy, if you correct me on any of this, if you're there for that part, of the statement of I'm trying to remember what it was called, that the President's Commission on Religious Liberty, I believe it's called, it issued a statement, which was not too bad in terms of its content, except of course it didn't mention pagans, and so a commentary on that, and again trying to find out, pointing out that there's a number of pagans in the United States, and they shouldn't be ignored. So those are probably the most tangible things that the PSA has done. There's information about practical stuff about participating in protests, about contacting your representatives. There's flyers I left at the at Mystic South. I left some flyers and bookmarks about PSA that people could pick up. I wore a PSA T-shirt to kind of advertise our existence. So it's it's mostly we're keeping watch about what's happening and taking some actions as they seem to be necessary. There's also there's a number of committees. There's an interfaith committee which is looking at other minority religions that we might consider pagan, but maybe they don't want to consider themselves pagan, and so forth, to try and kind of hang together as opposed to hanging separately. And yeah, and so there's a messaging committee to try and when necessary put out statements, for instance, on the reduction of the military religious codes. So that was mostly sort of a recap of what's happening. We've had some educational sessions. Oberon did one on Christian nationalism. Unfortunately, I was not able to see that because I was traveling or something. I forget what. And we've got some on, safe protests and organizing, and some other practical types of things like that will be coming along in the future. So that's pretty much it.
Would you like to talk about this on the show? We could devote a whole show to it, separate from the theurgy conversation. Or could you recommend someone who might want to do a show on it? Or if they're doing podcasts, can you provide links, and I'll gladly help spread the podcast.
They're not providing podcasts. There are meetings, and many of the meetings are open. So in that sense, anyone can attend them. But well, that's a good question. Let me think about that, because I'm not sure what would whether that would be a good sort of theme for one of our meetings or not. But let me think about it. Okay, then maybe somebody else we should invite in to do a more of an overview.
I leave the judgment of all here assembled with you as their mouthpiece. Thank you. And we've reached the end of today's conversation. How can people reach you and enter your world? And we'll start with Apollonius.
Okay, the best way to reach me, my website is opsopaeus.com, opsopaus.com. That's an HTTP website, and you can see some of my material there, or there's a link to send me an email, or you can find me on Facebook as John Opsopaeus.
Thank you very much, sir. Tony Mierzwicki.
Best way to reach me is through Facebook. I have a personal page. I haven't really updated the author page in a long time. And I also have a blog on Patheos called Holistic Spirituality, which I added to today. I wrote a blog on the movie The Odyssey.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And Cleopatra.
Brandy Williams Author, brandywilliamsauthor.com, Brandy Williams Author on Instagram and on Facebook. And I'm actually doing more posts and I'm being more available. So actually, Facebook Messenger is a good way to reach me if you want to actually do it. I was looking at it today and realized that during the period of time I was a caregiver, I didn't respond to stuff. So if you tried to reach me like 5 years ago, you can reach me now.
That's good to know. Thank you so very much. I'm behind on my correspondence also. Not 5 years behind, but getting close. Thank you very much, Cleopatra. And thanks to all of you. As always, my existence is blessed by your presence, and I always look forward to our conversations. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, and I wish you success in all things.
Good night.
Good night.
So long.